The trial of Erin Patterson took the country by storm. The story of a woman accused and eventually found guilty of murdering her ex-partner's relatives, as well as attempting to murder him by poisoning the family with death cap mushrooms. That doesn't do this story justice though. This was a story about a messy separation, a fake cancer diagnosis, and according to the court, the story of someone who knowingly and carefully foraged a poison with the intent to kill 5 people. This is the entire timeline of the Erin Patterson trial, Australia's mushroom murderer. Erin Patterson was a typical Australian woman. She had a career as an air traffic controller, engaged in true crime Facebook pages, made friends through the sites, and supposedly took up foraging as a hobby during the lockdowns. She was described as intelligent and quite witty. However, she also struggled with self-esteem, depression, and binge eating throughout her life. Erin was self-reported to turn to Dr. Google at times, convincing herself she had brain tumors or autoimmune diseases, even fearing she had ovarian cancer due to a family history. She was financially stable, additionally receiving some inheritance from her grandmother in 2006. She had a family, dating her husband Simon Patterson in 2005, marrying him 2 years later in 2007, and having their first child in 2009, before separating in 2015. The relationship was chaotic, for lack of a better term, with Simon characterizing the relationship as Erin leaving multiple times and it being toxic, deteriorating late 2022 due to disagreements over child support. Now that we understand some of the complications occurring in Erin's life, let's get into what actually happened. On the 28th of May, 2022, the same year things began deteriorating, and 4 months prior to this fateful lunch, records indicated a computer in Erin's possession searched the terms iNaturalist, a plant and fungi tracking website, visiting a page with the words "Death Cap from Melbourne, Victoria, Australia." Nearly a year later, between the 12th and 15th of February 2023, Erin began using 2 phones, Phone A and Phone B, which would ultimately be key in identifying her potential movements before the murders took place. Erin was paranoid about her health, as previously mentioned, and on the 24th of March, Erin took a self-administered screening test for cervical cancer, with results coming back negative. On the 18th of April, a user on iNaturalist posted about finding death cap mushrooms in the Lock area, and according to cell data, Erin Patterson, 10 days later on the 28th of April, was plausibly in the Lock area according to those phone records. 2 hours after picking up those mushrooms, Erin purchased a Sunbeam food dehydrator, with photos found on seized devices showing dehydrated mushrooms being weighed, with that weight being enough to kill someone. Corroborating this, throughout May to March, Erin would post on those true crime forums about putting powdered mushrooms in different foods, in some cases hiding powdered mushrooms in her children's food. On the 21st of May, another user on iNaturalist posts about death cap mushrooms in 2 locations, with Erin's mobile data again indicating she potentially traveled to Outram on the 22nd of May between 11:23 AM and 11:59 AM. Erin attempted to keep in contact with her estranged husband's family, and on the 24th of June, Erin's in-laws, Donald and Gail Patterson, as well as Gail's sister and her husband, Ian and Heather Wilkinson, come over for lunch with Erin, and everything goes well. 4 days later, on the 28th of June, Erin confides in her ex-parents-in-law that she's having a biopsy on a lump on her elbow in relation to potential cancer she was worried about. The thing is though, when Constable Eppingstall later attained Erin's medical records, he found no evidence of a biopsy or additional procedure scheduled or ever having occurred. On July 11th, Erin swaps out her SIM cards, and on the 16th of July, attends a service at a Baptist church attended by her estranged husband's family. There, she invited her estranged husband Simon, Donald and Gail Patterson, as well as Ian and Heather Wilkinson, for a lunch, allegedly under the pretense she did in fact have cancer and needed advice on how to tell the children. Simon would later describe it very rare for Erin to invite guests over at all, and in the context of a cancer diagnosis though, it made sense. However, Erin herself would later admit the pretense of her invitation was a lie, feeling embarrassed to tell them she was actually planning to have gastric bypass surgery. Simon declines the offer as he feels uncomfortable, but his relatives accept the offer, unknowingly committing to a lunch that would later kill 3 out of 4 of them. Erin appeared to have a public and private face in regards to her extended family, outwardly appearing caring and wanting to connect, but in her private group chats expressing the exact opposite. One message reads, "I'm sick of this shit. I want nothing to do with them. I thought his parents would want him to do the right thing, but it seems their concern about not wanting to feel uncomfortable and not wanting to get involved in their son's personal matters are overriding that, so f*** them." Between the 23rd and 27th of July, Erin buys numerous items for the lunch, claiming to have also previously bought commercially unavailable mushrooms from a local Asian grocer. These dried porcini or shiitake mushrooms in an unbranded 100-gram packet with a white label at a store she couldn't even remember the location of. On the 29th of July, 2023, Erin Patterson hosted that fateful lunch, sending her 2 children off to the movies and serving the group beef Wellington. Erin had reportedly never made beef Wellington before, wanting to do something fancy. Ian Wilkinson, the sole surviving member of this lunch, would report Erin's food was presented on a different plate than the others, with Erin further hesitant about allowing the guests to look in her pantry. Evidence of death cap residue on the meals and mushroom dehydrator was minorly contested. Dr. Camille Truong, a mycologist, would later examine the leftovers of the beef Wellington, telling a jury she found no traces of death cap mushrooms in the leftovers of the beef Wellington. Further samples of debris were given to additional experts, with Dr. Dimitri Gerastomoulos telling the courts that chemical compounds found in death cap mushrooms were in fact detected in 4 of 7 vials of debris from Erin's dehydrator, and Dr. David Lovelick finding that 2 of 7 vials given to him were positive for death caps. It is also disputed how much Erin ate at the lunch, with Erin claiming she ate a significant amount of cake after her guests left and made herself throw up afterwards, a statement in line with her history of binge eating disorder and purging. This was also an attempt by herself and her lawyers to explain why she did not have the same symptoms as her guests, despite having the same meal. Following the lunch, all the guests began feeling incredibly ill, with Don and Gail traveling to Dandenong Hospital on the 30th of July. That same day, Heather and Ian also began exhibiting symptoms, and Simon picked up Heather and Ian, with their final destination being Leongatha Hospital. Erin claims that that evening her children are given leftovers from the lunch, despite the fact she was now aware of her guests becoming incredibly ill. Crown prosecutor Nanette Rogers, however, believes this statement was an intentional misdirection, and Erin's children were in fact not given leftovers, as she knew they contained death cap mushrooms, but wanted those she told to believe it had nothing to do with the lunch. The 4 victims are all transferred to Austin Hospital in Melbourne on the 31st of July. That same day, Erin contacts Simon requesting that she too be taken to hospital as she was experiencing diarrhea the night before, but he declines, with Erin attending Leongatha Hospital around 8 AM herself, however, declining a full examination. Erin returns at 9:48 AM, where she is transferred to Monash Hospital, and it was reported that Erin did not ask once about how her relatives were doing, even after being informed by doctors about what had occurred. Erin declined that her or her children received examination despite being informed she may have been exposed to death cap mushrooms like her relatives, and we now know that Erin later stated that she had personally accepted there must have been death caps in the meal. By August 1st, Ian and Heather arrive at Austin Hospital, with Don and Gail arriving the day prior. Erin stated during the court proceedings that whilst in the waiting room with Simon, he asked her explicitly, "Is that how you poisoned my parents, using that dehydrator?" At this moment, Erin supposedly began thinking that maybe she had accidentally mixed up mushrooms bought at the Asian grocer and the dehydrated forage mushroom she had supposedly foraged, telling the court she just grabbed some mushrooms she found in the pantry as the meal was too bland. Erin is eventually assessed at Monash and given the all clear, being discharged around 1 PM. Tanya Patterson, Simon's sister, told the court she remembers overhearing Erin receive her toxicology report, with doctors informing her everything was fine and her potassium levels weren't as low as expected for someone supposedly experiencing diarrhea, as reported by Erin. The others at Austin are deteriorating, however, and the Department of Health becomes involved, interviewing Erin about the lunch, with Erin expressing it might have been those mushrooms bought at the Asian grocer somewhere in southeast Melbourne. The following day, on the 2nd of August, Erin conducts a factory reset on one of the phones she was using before the 12th of February, with the police later finding she had conducted multiple factory resets on phone B. That same day, Erin allegedly attended a transfer station and a landfill station to deposit of some items, one of which was the dehydrator. As this was occurring, Monash Council began visiting Asian-style grocers looking to find similar products to the ones Erin described, and by the 3rd of August, the police had launched an official investigation into the incident, with Erin again swapping out her SIM cards. On the 4th of August, Heather and Gail pass away, with the police travelling to the aforementioned landfill station and finding a black Sunbeam dehydrator in a waste bin. That dehydrator was not only found to have Erin's fingerprints on it, but also traces of death cap mushrooms, as discussed earlier. Erin claimed she threw the dehydrator away as Child Protective Services were coming to investigate, given she had claimed to feed her children the leftovers that had now resulted in 2 deaths. According to Erin, she only disposed of the dehydrator as she thought they might ask about the meal in the dehydrator and take the kids away because she had made everyone sick. It was simply panic and nothing else. The next day, on August 5th, Donald also passes away, and Erin's home is raided with police seizing phone B and one of the 2 SIM cards. Erin is taken to Wonthaggi police station, where there she tells police she never foraged mushrooms and did not own a dehydrator. Erin would later claim this was a stupid knee-jerk reaction after learning 2 guests had died, not a malicious lie. Once home on August 6th, Erin manages to remotely connect to the phone held by police and again performs a factory reset. Erin continues using the remaining phone she has at home, which to this day the police were never able to recover. And nearly a week later, on August 11th, the Department of Health concludes its investigation of 14 Asian grocers in the area, finding no stores are selling mushrooms that matched Erin's description, with the courts later being told it was highly unlikely commercial foods were contaminated with death cap mushrooms. A month goes by, and Ian Wilkinson is actually recovering, being moved to a rehabilitation ward on September 11th. Nearly 4 months after the lunch occurred, the police officially arrested Erin on the 2nd of November, and she is charged with 3 counts of murder and 5 counts of attempted murder, with police claiming she had attempted to murder Simon on 2 other occasions as well. These additional charges in relation to Simon were later dropped, however. Erin pleaded not guilty, and the trial was fast-tracked, bypassing a committal hearing. The trial began on the 28th of April 2025, with Erin's defense focusing on the notion that she did not intentionally add death cap mushrooms to the meal. Her illnesses that sent her to hospital were real, the phone records were not accurate enough, she loved her extended family, and the incorrect information given to the police, medical staff, and health investigators were the panicked reactions of an anxious and stressed out woman who had made a horrific mistake. Ultimately, the trial lasted 10 weeks, and on the 7th of July 2025, Erin Patterson was found guilty of 3 counts of murder and 1 count of attempted murder. Before we finish off, I want to leave you with a wild article ending I found as I was editing this video. I bought multivitamins and fish oil in the hopes of pushing through a little longer. At home, a long way away, my life and my family were imploding. The grind and my absence had made my partner of 24 years, the mother of my 2 children, come to realize she no longer needed me in her life. Days after my 50th birthday, for which she had organized a surprise party with all my friends and family in attendance, she told me she no longer loved me and I was disregarded like yesterday's newspaper. But the trial went on and so did I. Perhaps the last sad victim of Erin Patterson. But hey, thanks for watching. Come join the Discord, come talk about it, come say hi, come let me know what you think in the comments, like and subscribe if you enjoy the content. It's been real.